Let's talk about orbital debris for a second. What is your opinion? Do you feel that the owners of whoever put the piece up there in the first place should still have the rights to it, or would it be more like the law of the sea, where if you find it and you salvage it, you own it?
I'm definitely a proponent of applying the maritime tradition to space. There are a lot of aspects. One of the weird things about applying maritime law to space is that, especially with things like the law of salvage, is there's sort of an idea. It's not completely true with salvage that, look, I went and found this thing, or the law of finds, you find a boat on the bottom of the ocean and you're like, oh well, I'm going to go and salvage this and and make a claim against it. That doesn't quite apply to space, because in theory, if you have a big enough telescope, you can just see everything from Earth that's in space. Now there's some issues there, but I think that applying the law of the sea to say, if you go up and you take this object that is a danger to itself or a danger to other objects, and you remove it from the situation, or you partially remove it, basically if you attempt to salvage it, and it meets the criteria for salvaging, then and you want to make a claim against that, I think that's the direction that we should go, because it's very clear that there are people that either there are organizations that no longer that own these satellites that no longer exist, or they're not as interested in cleaning up space debris as they are, putting new things up in orbit. And space is big, low Earth orbit is big, but it's not as big as we would like. And we have the opportunity right now to take some proactive steps from a legal standpoint and from a monetary standpoint to avoid that problem.
Let's talk about now then about the whole argument of, can a person or an organization or a government claim ownership on other celestial bodies, whether they be a planet, a moon, an asteroid, whatever?
So I will have to defer to some of the more venerated people in this area. One of my colleagues, Jim Dunstan, I think, has written some good stuff about that, and he points out that the Outer Space Treaty and the Moon Treaty, which may or may not be international law, sort of by their terms seem to say, no, you can't go and claim private ownership to something. I think that's the popular analysis. I don't think that that's necessarily true. In fact, I would argue rather vehemently that the framers' intent at the time of the Outer Space Treaty was not necessarily to say that private people in particular can't go and claim something by, either by possession or even maybe just by identification. But in particular, the way that the United States and the USSR treated moon rocks is a good indication that the major parties to that treaty don't believe that it bars private ownership, because the USSR and the United States exchanged moon rocks, and the United States is very, very aggressive in prosecuting people for the illegal sale or for stealing moon rocks, which pretty well implies a property right.
Even though it was kind of a crazy idea that Newt Gingrich put out, what do you think about the possibility, I know it will be very far future, but if colonization were to happen on the moon or Mars or anywhere else, how do you feel about the concept of, once it achieves a certain level of citizenship, that they could apply for statehood or even their own sovereign nationality?
I think that's a great question. I think that on a long enough time scale, we're going to have, assuming that we have permanent human existence not on the Earth, we're gonna have nation states that are going to be that are going to be on the moon or on Mars. I think that it's a difficult argument. My question is, what are the motivations of moon colonists to even be a part of the United States, or part of China or Russia or any terrestrial based country, if we don't have like a constant, like a near constant traffic between us and them. If you just go and put, let's say, 500 people on the moon, which would be a huge number of people, and just said, oh, go do this thing, what do they need? What do they need with the United States? Now, and our legal system is, and our cultural tradition and our legal traditions are, very rich, and I think something to kind of model things after. But as close a relationship as Newt Gingrich suggested, I don't think that's in the cards.
Well, what do you feel is the most important thing that people need to know about what it is that you do and that you work on?
I would say that my mission in my very young career is to help both individuals and companies, both small and large, understand the legal landscape that exists in the patent world, and to proactively protect and share their developments. For example, there's a really big movement. Like, I think the NewSpace movement and sort of the maker movement are somewhat intertwined, and the maker movement is very open source, is very into sharing, and I think that's awesome. But there are ways to make sure, from a legal standpoint, from a patent standpoint, to make sure that if you're a company and you want to share and you want to help grow this young industry, that you can do that, and there are proactive steps that you can take to do that, and that aren't simply just saying, here are all our plans, or here's everything, because that, at least in my opinion, that actually exposes you to potentially exposes you to being kind of shut out of the industry, and may ultimately hurt the industry in its growth, compared to some other kind of proactive steps on the patent front. So I think that's the thing that I think I'd like people to know.